Coach PJ here. Are you done working for someone else? Are you ready to be your own boss? If you're tired of working for someone else and you have a dream of creating a business, building a business, then let's talk about how you get started. There are lots of ways to get into business. The one we're going to talk about is getting started from the ground up. Not buying an existing business, not a franchise, but just really starting from the ground up on what you need to do. Generating business ideas. You need to know what you're going to do. What's the business going to be about? There are 3 different techniques to look at. So let's look at the first thing. What do you love? What do you love to do? What would you pay someone else to do? What would you pay to do? What are things that you lose yourself in? If you didn't need to work, what would you do with your time? Where would you spend your time? What do you dream about? All of those things get you excited about that love, that passion, that igniting. Being in business isn't easy for yourself, isn't easy. So you want to make sure that you're connected to something that you love, something that you enjoy, something that's not going to become drudgery day after day, or when it gets a little more difficult, when the days are hard, or when you're early on in your business. You want to make sure you're doing something you love, that you just get lost in. Because when you're doing that, it will make it so much easier to instill that passion on others and to get others excited about it, which is an important element of being a business, because you are selling whatever that is that you are marketing, and that element will come across when you love what you do. Second, let's talk about what you're good at. What are the things, what does your education set you up for? What are you trained to do? What do you excel at? What do other people notice you do well? What do you gravitate to from a skill perspective? It could be a soft skill. You're excellent at communication. You're excellent at connecting the dots for folks. You're excellent at making choices, at keeping people on task. What are those things that you're really, really good at? It could be a technical skill or a competence skill. Are you great at organizing? Are you great at using your hands, construction, things like that? But really look at what you're good at. When you're good at something, and you're passionate about it or you love it, those going hand in hand make the business easier for you. It also helps you understand that you're doing a quality job and quality work because you're good at it, you excel at it. And when you excel at it, folks notice. So it's a great foundation for starting a business. So the third element is really, really important, because you need to make sure that you explore what the world needs. Now that's a really broad statement. So let's talk about how you kind of break that down. So you want to make sure that your business has a need, has a market. You're talking about supply and demand, and you want to make sure that there's a recipient for what you're doing, and that there's someone out there who needs this. You're solving a problem. Now, I said the world, but it could also be just your community. It could be your neighborhood. It doesn't have to be a global solution. It just needs to be something that the world needs, and that you're solving a problem. It also can be an opportunity to serve a lot of people. You have a reach, you have something that a lot of folks want or need, or your market is open for you. Thinking about it in the element of what problem you need to solve is really, really important. Because when you're thinking about a problem, you're looking at, I have a solution for that problem. And therefore, when you get into the sales elements of your business or looking at driving it, it's easy to identify those folks who have that problem, and then you have a solution to that problem, which is very helpful, and it's a natural. It's not a forced sale or a forced conversation. It's a very natural conversation to get into. So let's go back through that. Take a look and write down a list of all the things you love to do, things that you would pay others to do, things that you lose yourself in. Make sure you really understand what you love to do, what you dream about. Second, write down a list of what you're good at. What are the things that you excel at? Really look at it and ask other people what that is. Notice what you gravitate to from doing perspective, what you love to do, what you're good at. And then the third element is notice the problems, the gaps, the things that the world needs. And notice that on a daily basis as you're going throughout your day. Where do you hit points of frustration? Where do you find that what you're looking for isn't available? And it could be online, it could be in a service opportunity, it could be as you're looking for a particular product, but you have something that you need and it's not available. So those are the best areas to begin to look at when you look at what's the business I want to get into, because that will naturally marry all three of those together. And then look at whether it is a tangible product you're going to be building, which means it's something you're going to manufacture, something you're going to create, something that a physical product. Is it a service? Is it something you're going to do or you're going to have a team of folks that do for others? Service-related business. You're going to teach something. You're going to manage a particular activity for someone else and do that service for someone else. Or is it a digital product? A lot of folks think there should be an app for that. If you think there should be an app for that, and you can start to marry that element of supply and demand and what that looks like, then perhaps there needs to be an app for that. And that is a need that you are identifying. So app being a website or just a digital solution for that. That's the third element. So is your solution digital, service, or tangible product? So those are also elements to begin to look at. Once you have that down and you start to, you're dreaming, you're thinking, you're percolating all this information, what I want you to do, and this is really important because it takes it to that next step and it really starts to create and cement what it is. I want you to create a hypothesis. And I know this sounds kind of an interesting way to look at it, but you're creating a hypothesis that if you provide this service to this market, people will pay for it. So think about what your hypothesis is. What are you going to provide and to who? And knowing that they will see value and pay for it. Because a business has to be commercially viable. It needs to be profitable. That's the definition of a business. So when you start to look at it, making sure that your hypothesis, and I want you to write down that hypothesis, if this market had this available to them, they would pay for it. And once you write down that hypothesis, what it's going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you to validate that hypothesis. Go back to high school, grammar school, science class. There was a hypothesis, and then you solved that hypothesis or you proved that hypothesis. So what I want you to do once you have your hypothesis is we're going to work through solving it. And what's the fastest way to solve that hypothesis? And what's the easiest way to do it? And I want you to look at the least resistance to money, the path of least resistance to money. How do I prove that your hypothesis about what you're going to create and who you're going to provide it to, and the fact that that can be monetized, how can you prove it? And how can you prove it in a very, very quick, fast, not overcomplicated way? And that in the entrepreneurial world is known as a minimal viable product. And I'll get into that later because that's an important element. But I want you to be thinking about, how do I prove this hypothesis? What can I do that would validate or begin to shape that hypothesis? Really important, because that hypothesis is what's going to take you to that next step. And it's going to allow you to pivot. It's going to allow you to learn. It's going to allow you to shift based on what you're learning by testing. And the more testing cycles you can get out of it, the better. So a couple things. What's holding you back from going forward? Oftentimes it's fear. And I have a great video that you can look at that talks about, is fear holding you back? And I want you to look at that if that's something that's showing up for you, that you're afraid of failure, afraid of taking the leap, afraid of letting go of what you have to do something new. So check out that video and look at how do you move forward. Because when you start to move forward, it gets exciting. And where you spend your time will be really, really important, because if you're committing to a business, if you're committing to a project, if you're committing to exploration, then spend your time on that exploration. Do the research, learn, study, find competitors, find what's out there, look at the marketplace. As much market research as you can do is very, very critical to taking the next step. So if you like this video, subscribe at the bottom here, click the bell so you can see more videos, share, like. Tell me what you're either afraid of to move forward. Tell me where you are in your journey of creating a new business. Take care.